So welcome everyone to this final EYP integration session. So whilst this is the final EYP integration session, the community calls will continue on for the foreseeable future until the end of the interwebs. So you'll still be able to get community support nevertheless. Just a couple of things as usual. So if you can have your webcam on, that's very useful for feedback, either to see how you're doing, and also allows like an element of kind of safety, that sort of thing. So it's like both ways. If something's not quite right, you can see that. If you want to, if there's people around, you may choose to use headphones, so it's like more confidential. If there's any questions and that sort of thing discussed, this is going to have question and answer stuff. It's going to have some practice, and there might be some breakout rooms to meet other people in the community as well. And also just may even just see how you're doing on your journey and invite you to continue sharing that in the Facebook group or wherever else we can do that. In case you're unaware, because I get this question most times, the replays from this session are available on the learning platform. Sorry if I cough, that's probably because I now have COVID. And so you'll be able to get the replays there. And anything else, I think that's the main things. So if you need to catch up on that, you can go there. I know some people have groups that they're part of now as this training, so you can share this with them, obviously. And I'll introduce Eva right now. So unfortunately, she couldn't make it on the EYP event that we did earlier this year, despite trying to sort it out. There was lots of bookings. So in case anyone hasn't come across her before, she's an embodied facilitator, an Enneagram coach. She has like a master's in is it like biochemistry, I seem to remember. Obviously an embodied yoga principles teacher. She also has yoga teacher training. She's a coach. She's based in Munich. She's a marketing manager for strategic operational marketing, and a whole heap of other things. And she's also a very lovely human with a whole heap of range. I was just discussing with her before this. Actually, what, like, I don't know if anyone here knows 4 elements that we've talked about. I'm like, are you like fire or air or water or like earth? And we're just like, so she can really embody the full range of all the poses that we'll do. So plenty of questions about practice. Welcome today about facilitation, because she's very experienced in that. And I'll shut up now and let her get started.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome, everyone, and a warm welcome from Munich to wherever in the world I find you, or we find each other tonight or today. So maybe just write in the chat some titles. I can see your location. Just give me some information on where on this planet we are together tonight. All right, Denmark, London, Sachsen, Deutschland, hallo Köln, guten Abend, UK, Canada, I can see Zambia, wow, San Francisco, good morning or good day. Yeah, oh, there's a dog already in Zambia. Okay, so it's a pleasure to meet you, at least virtually this time. And as Steve already mentioned, so my background is a scientific one. I did back in the days, I studied biology and microbiology, molecular biology, and I come from kind of a geeky, nerdish perspective to things. And I switched rather to a yoga background. I've been teaching yoga for 10 years now in Germany, in Austria and Switzerland, mainly in the German-speaking countries. And back in the days, I think it was 3 years or 4 years ago, with Steve together, we were on EFC when we were able to meet and to hug and to cuddle in person. And unfortunately, this year it's not possible. So we come with the virtual world and we make the best out of it. And why don't we just start with a social centering? Not only a personal centering, but rather a social one. So I'd invite you to take a seat and maybe move forward a little, or find some pair of friendly eyes. If you want to place your feet flat on the ground, maybe you find a place where you can get some stillness and not moving around. Maybe just become still for a brief moment while we're traveling on Earth. And find some friendly eyes and notice how you are in this moment. and meeting, encountering another being. And sense how you are, how is your energy level on a scale maybe from 1 to 10. How are you feeling while meeting, while being with all of us in this moment? How is your emotional world right in this very moment? How are you feeling emotionally? And notice if there is a pattern emerging, if you are the one tending to receive, soaking up that friendliness, that smiley, that happy pair of eyes, or you're the one that wants to give, wants to send out some friendliness as well. And then come back to yourself. And for this moment, you can, if you like, close your eyes, or you can keep them open. And checking in with yourself, who do you bring in this virtual room? Who do you bring? What version of yourself? If there is a certain quality, where in your body would you sense that quality? Would you feel that quality? Would it become present, palpable, sensible? And uplift your spine just a little. Let the shoulders drop. Let the front of your body become soft, the belly soft. Let it really flop out. Let the chest become wide and soft. Relax your jaw, your tongue. Relax your eyes, soften your gaze. Let's take one inhale together. And then exhale through the mouth, and maybe there is a noise, there is a sound that you are making in this moment. What would that sound already reveal of yourself? And welcome back. And it's my pleasure, as I said at the beginning, to lead you through the final session of this integration sessions. And I wonder, and maybe you can help me here out, who is the one, or who of you has been with all the 4 sessions or 6 sessions already? Who did all of them? Okay, raise your hands or write it in chat, point it out, me or some digital virtual hands, who did all of them? Maybe there is something, okay, what happens if I miss this out, or I need to look all of them, or I'm so into this subject, in this theme. Who did like 3 to 5, like 50% who watched 3 to 5? Okay. And who is the newbie, the one who said, okay, the final one, I'm going to take this one. If I missed all of them, I'm going to take the last one. All right. So we have some different backgrounds, different levels of, I've seen that, I've done that. But what I've learned from Steve is that we have 4 poses left that haven't been practiced in these 6 integration sessions. And since it's like with the leftovers at a party, usually they can be the best, you know that, from the buffet when there's leftover. So we make out of the best, and my intention is to be of service to you. So feel free to step in, to jump in, to ask anything that comes up that helps you integrate your learning, that helps you integrate practices, your poses, or on another level, how do I teach this? What is the current pitfalls? What can I do with this and this and that? So feel free to step in. And why don't we start with, we have 4 standing poses for the practice. And why don't we start with stand pose. All right, so I'm inviting you to get up. Right, you to get up. And the standing pose is usually a one that might look easy. And normally when I'm teaching this pose, I wouldn't necessarily teach this in the beginning as I'm doing it right now. Why? Because it can bring up some emotional stuff. So be aware that whenever something comes up you feel not comfortable with, I don't know where you come from, what place you're in, what state you're in, feel free to step out. Feel free to do less or just step out. And place your feet flat on the ground, feet hip width apart. Uplift your spine and let the arms extended to the side of your body. Notice your hands, the palms are facing towards each other. The fingers are slightly extended yet closed. The gaze is straight. And notice the feet on the ground, the earth that is carrying you, and the solidity, the gravity that is embracing you, that is holding you, that is carrying you. And how does it feel? This is something that is familiar, this quality, this emotion. If you were to stand for something, if your life would end, which all of our lives do end, what is it that you want to remain of you? Is there a quality, something that you're willing to stand up for? Notice how you're feeling in this moment. Something that comes easy for you, or maybe there's some shift, some balancing, some fidgeting, or is it a groundedness that is arising? And you know, the moment of truth, when we release, when we get out of any pose, do you like or dislike the exit? You say like, you can release whatever you're doing, you can release, you can shake if you want, you can let yourself hang. There is a direction your body wants to go. Don't do what I do, just do what is in your body. Maybe you want to go up, you want to expand, you want to go down, you want to hug yourself, you want to hold yourself, maybe move, maybe contemplate in stillness. What direction do you want to go after this? And coming back to the screen, come back to the computer. Any comments, any questions to standing pose? Let's do it one by one, otherwise the impression might fade. So anything that's important for you, anything that came up when you're rehearsing, revisiting that pose. And also feel free to unmute yourself. I feel a lot more, yeah. Heavy arms. Yeah, it's interesting, the energy, and I was talking about direction of the body. In standing pose, there is a groundedness, there is something that carries you, that gives you strength. And yet, on the other hand, there is some uplifting, some dignity in the pose. It's not in hyperextension, it's not a leaning back, but it's a clear standing. The strength also. It helped me to land in the here and now. Yep. As I said, it's a pose that is not usually the one I would do in the beginning, but something that might help people to connect to what do they value, what is their worth, what is their mission, maybe what is their purpose. Yeah, have a right to stand up for what I believe in. True, true, we all do. Okay. My go-to, I love to start with dignity. Yeah. Serious, yes, exactly. There is a seriousness in what we stand for. There is no fuss, there is no joking about the things that we care. And as Stephen said, and as Steve said in the beginning, we can add, and this might be some sprinkling to teaching this kind of pose, we can add some qualities to the stand. There is a groundedness, there is an earthiness by nature. We can also extend that, since there is some uplifting, there is some upwards energy. And with this having said, looking straight ahead, it shifts my energy. True, true. Maybe some nice inquiry to that is, where is your gaze? Is it directive or is it rather peripheral? For standing, it's usually helpful when you have a direction, when there is a clarity also in the gaze. Leaving behind my life story is my legacy. Yeah, was clear as a bell. Cool. Okay. So, some common mistakes in standing. Sometimes the feet are too narrow, so make sure that they are hip width apart. Some common mistakes with the arms is that the fingers might be overly extended. There is a strength in it, but they are not kind of super extended. The arms usually don't have them too loose. As I said, there is a balance between rigidness, but also some dignity, some really resolution. I know what I stand for. The visionary on the horizon, more broad than focused. Also true for now. Yeah. Okay. The visionary, that's a good kind of transition to the next pose of the one that did not get practice. Fingers to that together, that's okay, that's good, that's good. Don't have it too overly extended, just keep them together, palms facing towards. Let's move to another standing pose. Let's move to transcendence. Slightly different, as we will see. And maybe you notice a preference for one or the other. Feet hip width apart. The difference is, you can't see it because I can't move too much backwards, but you come to the tippy toes. You come to the tippy toes. So rise up, extend the arms upwards. The gaze is facing upwards. And maybe the gaze is upwards, the arms upwards, and a little bit of tippiness, a little bit of off balancing. In the beginning, it's okay. Try to find a balance. Try to find some steadiness in your stance while you are on your tippy toes. And just notice how this makes you feel. Like rising above something. Like really getting out of the mud of something. Especially in these days. Maybe rising for something that is bigger than yourself. Something you believe in, some force, some power, call it God, call it source, whatever you like. Something you believe in that is bigger than yourself. And if you want to, if you start, I know this is kind of getting hard on the calves, release, come back. And come back to the screen. How did that go? I'm interested, I'm curious, because especially in these times, I find that people really need this kind of poses. How did transcendence go? Connecting to something that is bigger than you. Maybe a dream that is bigger. Maybe a dream of something that is better. I left behind something that was annoying to me, but not important. Yeah. Rising, like a like a lotus flower above the mud, transcending, getting rid, shedding all the layers. Maybe shedding the ordinary. Yeah, standing on tippy toes. Yeah, like yearning. That's interesting, actually, especially in the lockdown times when I do the workshops. People have this yearning for rising above that is keeping us down. It's a lockdown. It's something that's keeping us down. And transcending can really help you. There is a yearning. There is a longing. Yeah, like pulling me up like the aliens, we get to that. That's some bigger power that we can connect to with this pose. This is usually a pose that is not too emotionally overwhelming, but you can have people who zone out, who like really move out of this. So you have to be aware of that. And there is some unsteadiness. It comes by nature. We're not made to lift up the gaze to that, but there is a difference between getting really off balance and just moving a little and shifting a little. Quality of fun, yes, transcendence can be fun. This is the airy element I was talking about that can be also found in transcendence. Spirituality is not a dead serious thing. Imagine meditating with a lightheartedness, with a fun, transcending, connecting to a higher power. And this higher power would really make a joke, would really be funny. We all often sit and meditate when we're trying to transcend, and it's really, really, really earthy. But you can also do this in a transcending, in an airy way. Expansive, yes, effortless to do. Yeah. Any question to that pose? Anything that you struggle with? It's odd. Feel free. No question? Okay. Okay. So,
I have a question. I'm trying to type it, but it takes too long.
Yeah, go ahead.
So my question is, with some poses, the act of coming into them is really gets me connected. And especially with poses like this, where my calves are hurting and I'm wobbling and it's like, that's where my focus is. So I would let go, come into it, get, feel it, let go, come into it. And that helped me connect more than staying in it for a while where I'm concentrating on my wobbly feet.
Makes total sense. Whenever you're losing the connection, the feeling of the pose, you've been too long, you've been too busy with like being in Warrior 2 and you're starting like, oh, my knee hurts and my hips hurt, and you lose that deeper psychological layer. So whenever this happens, go out, get back in. Makes total sense. When would you put this in the class, and when would you suggest using this pose? Especially when you need some uplifting, especially when you have very grounded, maybe like when there's tough times, and when you have something to connect to that is beyond your being, when there is something that is needed to pull you out, or when there is a question of a higher power itself, like what do you believe in, what could you transcend to, what is your dream you connect with. When it's about vision and transcending the ordinary life. Imagine being stuck in a life you don't want to be. How would it feel to transcend? And what would be needed to do that? This is some question to do it here. What was the other question?
While you're looking for that, Eva, I might just add, for people who are struggling, maybe finding that quality at times, that rising above quality, sometimes it can be helpful also to maybe like stand on something higher, whether a chair or something like that, to have this raising above and look down on the problems of the world. So it's get that quality of you're raising above all the problems, all the shit of the world, and looking down upon it, becoming light. So that can also be a gateway in if you're struggling to find that quality, and then go back into the pose.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Like raising from the ground in any way. There was another, what is the pose of the hands? Extended and upwards, like this, extended and upwards. The gaze is upward.
I had asked about the alignment with your head, because often I find it's not that easy to be really, really straight up. It's a little bit further forward for me.
Yeah, we come to that when we come to the next pose, where the hands are rather forward and upward, but while we're transcending, it's more upward. The next pose, which is, by the way, a yin pose, similar to what we just did. Transcendence is meant to be a yang pose. The other one, that is the yin passive receiving part of it, would be inspiration. So let's practice this. Kind of, we can play with the difference and what is your preferred way of transcending, being actively doing something, or getting inspired from something that is bigger, that is higher. So for the yin pose, you might remember, you might recall, the weight is mainly on the back foot. And you can get back on. I invite you to join me. Feet are hip width or a little broader, so you have a really stable stance, The weight of the body is mainly on the back leg. It's like 60%. Just make sure that you do not sink too hard into your knee. The spine is nice concave, so it's slightly sinking in, and yet there is a little lift. The gaze is, again, it's upward, and the arms are extended upwards. In this case, they are slightly in front of your body. They are not upwards, but rather in front of your body. The fingers extended. Weight still on the back foot. Softening your chest, as if you were to receive something from a higher ground. This is inspiration. And just stay there for a moment and notice how you're feeling. How are you feeling here? And do you know this feeling? Is it familiar for you? What inspires you? Maybe if you want a voice of wow, something like seeing something for the first time, something new, maybe freshly fallen snow on a spring day where the cherry blossoms are on a tree. Usually nature is something that can be of inspiration. Can be anything else. What is your wow? Where do you like, wow? Maybe you want to voice it. Maybe you want to say, wow. Or in your language, whatever that is. What inspires you? Where do you draw your inspiration from? What do you need an inspiration right now these days? What does inspire you? And notice if you want to get out or if you want to stay, if you long for it. Release, come back to the screen. So the difference between these two poses is the transcendence is an active. We are standing on the toes or on something higher. The inspiration is rather the yin version of it. So we lean on the back foot and we receiving inspiration. How did that go? who preferred, or which one did you prefer? Let's phrase that question that way. Transcendence or inspiration? I could stay in inspiration all day. Yeah, especially in this time when you've been sitting for a screen for like 24/7 and seeing this room where you live and eat and talk and work and fight and whatever. Transcendence. Yeah, transcendence. Inspiration came from within, or rather through. Transcendence. Yeah, there is an alchemy between the two, that's true. You can take inspiration from transcendence. You can transcend from inspiration. They are connected in a way. You can play with these poses, with yin and yang. And this is, and I think I saw in the chat the question, how to play with these poses. It's a nice way to play with the yin and yang version, with giving and receiving, for example, with yes and no, with transcendence and inspiration, with probably being seen and becoming still. So we have in EYP, we have this principle of opposites, playing with opposites. So this is something that helps you to inquire, where is my preference? Am I active? Am I doing? Or am I rather receiving? And how can I create range? Usually the one we prefer, we know, that are familiar with us, are not the ones that create range in our life, in the life of others. So if you notice there is a certain pattern, you are very much comfortable in the yin poses, how about sprinkling in some yang? Any other questions? What inspires you these days? What is the source of inspiration for you? And I'm really curious because inspiration is something many people lack. Children, yes, playfulness, beginner's mind, people around nature. Usually when you want to teach inspiration, nature is a great gatekeeper, a great way to bring people that become inspired. Beauty, silence, yes. Yeah. And this is people in nature is something we miss these days. Drag queens, cool. Movement, dancing, yes. There's beauty in dance, there's beauty in movement. All right, okay. Are you ready for the final pose, for the last one of the EYP integration? Music, of course, true. All right, speaking about music, imagine some sensual music. You can put up some sensual music in the background if you like. The last one is a pose, and again, I remind you, this could be one that might be triggering because it's about exploring sensuality. It's about exploring sexuality, you could say. So whenever you feel uncomfortable, drop out. Whenever you feel to stop, drop out. There is usually, before we go into it, there's two kind of watch out for this pose. Maybe you notice one or the other. If you do it really flat, like not going in, or the other side of the coin, if you are maybe too giggly to say that, if you feel like weird or ridiculous, if you want to step out and make fun of it. So these are usually the two sides of watch out for sensuality pose. And I wonder, I'm gonna check on my screen if we have, is it ladies only tonight, or there was one guy from Bhutan and Steve. So there is some variation for you in that pose, in the sensuality pose. Steve, would you mind for doing the male version of sensuality while I do the I'm kind of jumping in. You can say no, of course.
Yeah, I can try out the, what do we call it, the Joey version or something?
Yes, exactly. So Namgai, if you want to, just follow Steve for that version. And all the women in the room, let's go for the sensuality pose. And one important aspect of that pose is that it's one of few that are asymmetrical. So when we are standing not facing towards, but rather from one side. And since this is a young pose, it's rather leaning on the front foot, bending the knee, and what is important, let the hip pop out. I'm going to show you from the side. The hip is popping out. And if you want to, you can have your hand on one side of your body, maybe the other one over here. The chin is slightly tucked. The mouth is open. And imagine the camera, the screen, being your lover. And there can be some playfulness in it, like gazing into each other's eyes. Yeah, and you see Steve already in the airy version of it. How are you doing, Steve? And for us women, it's like there is seduction in it, like sensuality. Is it rather a vulnerable thing, or is there some aggression in it for you? Is it you want to do something, or is it really a softening? Just notice how it makes you feel. And where in your life could you be more sensual? It doesn't necessarily have to be some partner, pleasure time with yourself, but eating or drinking or walking, where could you be more sensual? And again, feel free to step out and release and come back to the screen. Thank you, Steve.
No worries. I was also trying to demonstrate, if anyone saw the one when I was doing that, you can also be breathing more through the chest and in your mouth, and have more awareness around the mouth region. So it's like this sort of thing.
True. It's like the exhale is enhanced. Like really there is a longing in that sensuality as well. How did that go? It's usually one of the poses that are the most difficult in a photo shoot, yeah? Sensuality, self. Photo shoot. Wanted to kick out my legs. I'm curious, who was comfortable with that pose? Who was like, yep, that is my home zone? I was. You were, Daniela. Yeah. Who did not feel comfortable? Not yet. Yet is a nice word. Not today, as Arya from Game of Thrones used to say. In a workplace coaching relation, not quite. It's usually one of the poses that are really, that can be triggering. So when my advice or my experience in a workshop, the level of trust has to be there. It has to be established before you do this, if you do it at all in a 2 or 3 hour workshop. Anything you would like to add to that, Steve? I see you on the screen.
I'd say maybe as people are trying to become more comfortable with it as well, like that sensuality can be brought into things like, I know, like food or like smells or something like that. So it's not necessarily like, people often link it to sexuality, but it's not necessarily just that. It's any sensual experience. So if it's you're in a garden or you're eating like caramel ice cream or something, it's like, how can I enjoy it a bit more?
Yeah, thank you. It can be in anything you do, in the way you hold a glass, there's some sensuality in it, or in the way you walk, in the way you breathe. Okay. Yeah, there's a question, are these more masculine and feminine versus male and female? That's the gender discussion we have these days, right? So male and female. What would you say, Steve? Masculine, feminine? I think it's a wording, it's a language thing for me in German.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's no easy way to say it. It's just pretty much just a different polarity, right? Whether it's
Yeah,
sure. Yin or yang or masculine, feminine, or whatever else suits.
Yeah. All right. So, how about we're going to send you in breakout sessions to meet people, to connect, maybe with someone you haven't, maybe with someone you already have, and discuss on what you have learned, what is open. Usually in these sessions, it helps when a few more questions come up and something that you haven't thought about, and maybe someone else was kind of phrasing in his mind, but not really did get it out already. So what about 10 minutes, Steve? Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll open them, and then maybe we can say at 10 to the hour, people will come back. That seems like good.
Yeah. So anything that comes up for you regarding these questions, regarding these poses, anything that has not been mentioned, and then we come back into the group, and I'd say I'm gonna, you ask me whatever you like. Not only these poses related, but whatever you like, whatever you think might help you with your practice, but also with how to teach. All right? Okay. So it's up to you, Steve.
Right, cool. See you back here at 10 to the hour.
Yeah. Cool.
Which is
I'm
8
not...
minutes time.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so people are coming back. Let's wait a couple more seconds. Okay, what came up for you? Anything regarding the poses or anything you have a burning urge to ask? Yeah, there's one question that we was just discussing. What about combining poses? Like, for example, yes and receiving and enthusiasm. That's great if you want to combine poses. There's usually some ways to do it. You can combine poses that are the smaller version and then kind of expand to the bigger version of a pose. For example, yes and enthusiasm, or fuck yes. There is also a way of playing with poses when you think of polarities, like yes and no, giving, receiving, as I said. So this is a great way to explore poses. And you can come up with your own combinations of poses. Usually contrasts, standing, sitting, are kind of, when you have people standing, it's rather maybe you stay in the plane, in the plane of that what you want to teaching. But you can also do this. You can do rest and maybe being some pushing would also be possible. Heidi has a comment. Heidi, yes. Please, Heidi, feel free.
It was just what we talked about in the group. We really enjoyed your take on the pose. It made it a lot more accessible.
Which one? Which one are you talking about?
Sorry, the sensuality.
Yeah.
We talked all about that one the whole time because it was quite triggering for us. And also, as Steve was saying, you know, exploring more in the senses and how you eat, you said how you hold the glass and all that. That made it really, really accessible, as opposed to just going in very strongly to it. So I think we all agree that that was just really lovely, and now we want to try the pose a bit more. So I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great to hear, actually, because sensuality doesn't necessarily have to do something with sexuality. It comes with it, doesn't have to be bound to it. And in my coaching sessions, I usually, when I'm with women who want to explore their sensuality, you can do it with the slightest change. Maybe as I have this, I noticed there is this shirt dropping over, or maybe the way I walk, or the way the hair is falling. It doesn't have to be with interacting with someone or pleasuring sexually. So yeah. Okay, any other questions? If past trauma has disturbed polarity, is there a corrective to rebalance? Corrective in exclamation mark. I'm not a trauma specialist, so I wouldn't go into that question with 100%. I'm not 100% sure how to answer that, but rebalancing is usually do less of something and see what emerges there. If something is too much, you don't have to leave, but just do less of something. This can be any pose. There doesn't have to be a trauma history with it, but if something is too much, you don't need to leave. You just do less. Make sense? You find out where is that space of where is it okay for me to be. Lucy has her hand up. Thank you, Mandy, Deputy Sheriff.
So what we were discussing, I noticed when we did transcend or inspiration, I felt tired, like looking up. It didn't feel natural for me. It felt like inspiration comes through the back and through the body. And the kind of understanding that I shared with the group was that I've been doing research recently on African contemplative practices where there's such a strong sense of ancestry. So you can either see that in a spiritual way, or you can see it in a more medical way of what is your DNA, you know, what have your ancestors bequeathed to you that's really coming deeply through your body rather than looking up. It felt like there was a slight distinction between like a monotheistic religious sense of what inspires or what you look to for guidance, as opposed to a more animist belief system where you get a sense of spirit living in everything. So that's my breakout group thought that might be interesting to share with others, and whether any of the other embodied or the EYP poses do give us that sense of, you know, things that come through us, through our ancestry.
Yes, thank you. That's a nice one, actually. That's a nice observation. You can do, actually, when we explore, for example, culture, whereas also there's this ancestry, the DNA of the Germans, the Spanish, the British, the Australian. When we explore this, we have this in our body. And you can explore this in workshops, in groups. For example, collecting all the Germans, opposing all the British people, and notice what comes up. And there is something in you that is not you, but this is your background, your ancestry, your DNA. We have this in us. This is the embodiment. It's not only me as I, but my ancestors. That's true. Thank you. Yeah. I as we, true. And we as I. Okay, any other questions, comments, observations, learnings? What did you learn? If there was one thing, what did you learn? What do you take home with you tonight, today? There was one thing.
And after people have done that, I'll also just share on the learning platform where people can find the recordings just in case they can't find it.
There's no pose for ancestry coming through, I'd say, not specifically. All right. So, are people still writing, sharing what they learned? Nothing? I'm sad. Standing on a step, yeah. There's so much in each pose. Yeah. Answers to exploration seems to be a thing. Yeah, learning. Yes, standing. It's so easy and yet so powerful. Thank you, Francis. I take that with me. Made my day. This having said, since the the end of the session is fast approaching, thank you all very much for your time, for your willingness to learn, to listen, to explore. Thank you, Steve, for hosting, for being the earthy tech guy. And I hand over to you. Final words.
Yeah, thanks a ton to Eva. I think many people got a lot out of this session, and yeah, just looking at all of it, so sorry, really nice to see. And as I was discussing before with Eva in the breakout rooms, all the teachers have a different flavour, as you can tell. So you saw today another way of teaching, which is really great, the breakdown between everything and getting people's feedback at each point. I thought I'd just show quickly, before everyone heads off, that this is the final EYP integration session, as I said. However, community calls will still be continuing, so you don't need to worry about not seeing anyone again. If you do want to watch the recordings from this, it's a bonuses section on your training platform, and you can click on watch recordings of live Zoom calls there, and the community calls are also recorded and they're there. Obviously this stuff isn't as relevant because they've all happened now. But that's what that is. So we'll hopefully see you on upcoming community calls. Obviously it's a Facebook group as well. That's just going to go to my Facebook, isn't it? So you don't really need to see. But so that's what's going to be there. And just another couple of things, because Eva mentioned in person. If anyone is planning, now that the UK seems to let people in more easily and wants to do some in-person stuff, we have the embodiment gathering, which is 5 days in person in Brighton with a few teachers, EYP teachers, along with general embodiment teachers as well. So if you're interested in that, I'll post a link in the chat. And just for anyone who did attend the Relationship Reconnection Week last week, decided if people have been on some of our courses before, if you would like to be getting any of that stuff now at a sort of, and ask if you can't afford it and you would like it, then you can actually email Agatha and get a discount if that's something you're interested in. So they're the two things I just say that I just thought of just then. So if you want to attend in person or want to have a look at relationships as well, they're available. Otherwise, hopefully everyone qualifies with EYP at some point. Always feel free, if you're unsure about any qualification stuff, just message us on Facebook or visit us. And yeah, good luck to everyone. And it's been great having these 8 weeks. So the community calls as well, you'll be emailed out it'll be emailed out to you when the next one's coming up, just before it's coming up. I can't remember exactly when the next one is, so maybe you can post it on Facebook and then we'll answer there. I don't have it on hand right now. Yes. So thank you, everyone. There's the link, particularly the in-person gathering. We'd love to see some real people. So yeah, thanks everyone. Thanks Eva. And I'll unmute if everyone wants to say goodbye. Thank you all to everyone else in their first languages.
Goodbye.
Well,
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Ken. Take care.
Thank you.
See y'all.
chao, gracias.